Okay, hello, testing. This should be live. I'm just gonna post about this on other social media platforms, and then we will get started on discussing Tropical Storm Kajiki. Oops, hold on, I'm just making sure that I spelled it right. Okay, nice. And time to share it on the Discord, and then we will get into it. Okay, this should be working. I'm going to double check. Yes, it is. Alright, so again, if you have any questions and you're watching this after it's gone live, you can always leave it in the chat or in the comments, and I will answer it in the next update. So, we are covering Tropical Storm Kajiki, which is currently over Thailand, and it's moving further inland in towards parts of Myanmar, and hold on, wait, is that Laos or is that... Hold on, just gonna double check something. That's Laos, my bad. Okay, I made that mistake. Just gonna make sure that, because I know that people are gonna correct me on that. Alright. Sorry about that. Okay, I figured I'd make that kind of mistake. Alright. Yes, and even TC mentioned it. Yes, Laos. Okay. Well, Tropical Storm Kajiki, Kajiki, is currently over Laos and it's expected to move further inland into parts of Thailand and parts of Myanmar as a tropical depression or remnant low over the next 24 hours or so. So let's talk about the impacts that the system will bring over the next 5 days or so, and it's going to be a little bit less than that. We have a broad area of marginal impacts, which includes parts of northern Vietnam, parts of northern Laos, and then parts of eastern Myanmar, mainly northeastern Myanmar, and then parts of far northern Thailand. This is mainly going to be impacts, pretty much all of this is going to be in the form of rain, although there could be some wind impacts in this general area right there. Looking at the slight impacts, it's also for parts of northern Vietnam, northern and central Vietnam, no, I'd say that's still northern Vietnam, and then parts of Laos, far northwestern Thailand, and then parts of eastern Myanmar there. And then there's a section of moderate impacts right over here in parts of the coast of Vietnam, on mainly northern Vietnam there, where we could see some flash flooding. Concerns. As the system continues moving west, those impacts will start to go down, but since it's still right over here and the outer bands are now just funneling rain towards there, that's why there's still additional moderate impacts for that area. Looking at the global view of tropics right now, we still have a lot going on. The remnants of Erin are continuing to move out to sea near Iceland and the United Kingdom and Ireland. Tropical Storm Fernan is moving to the northeast, and that system is weakening now. Tropical Storm Juliet, I believe, or Juliet. I think it's Juliet. It might be Juliet. This storm is going to be moving to the northwest, and it is likely to become a hurricane. In the Eastern Pacific, we have an area of interest here with a 30% chance of development, as well as a one with a 10% chance. And the Central Pacific has a disturbance with a 30% chance of tropical development. Looking in the Western Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Kajiki, which is moving westwards and could enter the North Indian Ocean as a broad circulation. We could see some redevelopment out of this, but I'm currently not anticipating it. And we also have Invest 93W, which has a 50% chance of developing mainly in the South China Sea. There are also two other disturbances in the Western Pacific, both with a 10% chance of development. That's going to be over the next 3 to 10 days. So, we are currently in code red for Tropical Storm Kajiki, which is why this update's coming out. But we are also in code orange for 93W, so we may see more updates on that in the future. Looking at the satellite imagery on Tropical Storm Kajiki, we can see that the sun has risen on the center there, which is located right about there in central or northern parts of Leo. And you can see how most of the thunderstorm activity is off towards the eastern side of it, mainly the northeastern side, and it's pummeling parts of Vietnam there with heavy rainfall rates, and flash flooding is going to be a concern there. But as we can see, though, the system is fairly healthy as an inland system. So that's why it's still a tropical storm with winds likely of around 50 miles an hour or so. Looking at the infrared imagery, we can still see that there are some cooler cloud tops over the center, so it isn't completely barren. But we can see those thunderstorms beginning to, or continuing to impact parts of Vietnam. And here's a look at the higher resolution imagery, and then there you can see those thunderstorms and how intense they are. Looking at the radar imagery of this system, we can see where the center is located at, right in Leo, right over here, and you can see the bands of heavy rain impacting Vietnam. So while the system's, sorry about that. There we go. Well, the system's center is not over Vietnam, and it's leaving it. There are still those moderate impacts. Now, looking at the sea surface temperatures, that doesn't really matter a whole lot. Shear, not really a huge problem as of right now. It's mainly just the land interaction that's going to be weakening it. And maybe even a dry air, actually, yeah. Now, if we take a look at the distance, it is currently around 250 kilometers or so away from Thailand and around 420 kilometers away from Myanmar. It's around 70 to 80 kilometers away from Vietnam and roughly around 550 kilometers away from Hainan Island. Looking at our next system here, 93W, it is near Manila. It is currently around 200 kilometers or less to the east of Manila and just around 150 kilometers away from making or moving over the Philippines. And it's roughly around 1,400 kilometers away from Hainan Island and around 18 to 1,900 kilometers away from Vietnam. Looking at the models, the European run quickly dissipates this now, and the models aren't really going to show a whole lot. They're just going to show the system dissipating. What we'll want to look at is 93W, on the models at least. The European run struggles to develop 93W, keeps it as a broad circulation over the next 3 days, and beyond that it just moves it in towards Vietnam there as just a broad circulation. It also does develop the Central Pacific storm quite a bit, something to look out for. The American run struggles to develop it as well. It keeps it as a broad circulation. And then there's that 10% area of interest right over here near the Philippines Sea. Looking at the German run does develop it into a tropical cyclone by the time it's in the western South China Sea and even the parts of the Gulf of Tonkin, maybe the southern portions of that area. And it only keeps it as a weak tropical depression or tropical storm. And looking at the Canadian run, doesn't really develop it at all. So again, that's why we're giving it around a 50% chance of development. Looking at the ensembles, the European ensembles though are a bit more bullish on the system developing, with some of those ensemble members showing a possible typhoon out of this system. This is a very similar scenario as to what we had earlier with Kajiki. So we may see something similar happen with that. Wind shear is going to be about the same kind of pattern with it, so again, there could be some quick development out of it. It really all depends on what it will look like as it enters the South China Sea. And here's a look at those ensembles right on here. Most of them bringing it into the South China Sea, and you can see all those little dots right there showing possible development out of it. Let's see, looking at the American run on this, it's not showing a whole lot of members developing the system. It still has a broad area of low pressure in the South China Sea, nothing too big out of it though. And you can see that on here with all the members going into the South China Sea and parts of Hainan Island, but not seeing a whole lot of development out of it. Not all the members show that. Let's see if there's any questions on it so far. Oh, it's English. Okay, so it's Juliet. Let's see. I'm going to cover... Let's see. Here's a look at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast. They'd have it at around 50 knots right now and then moving further inland into Thailand and Myanmar. Oh yeah, let's take a look at the rainfall threat over the next 5 days or so. in some of the models. And then I'll get to the questions. Let's see, so the European run showing rainfall totals in parts of Vietnam as an additional 130 to 140 millimeters of rain. Parts of Thailand could see up to 230 millimeters of rain. Parts of Laos in around 100 to 150 millimeters. And then parts of Myanmar, again, could see spots of up to 200 millimeters of rain. The American run showing higher totals for parts of Vietnam, rainfall totals up to 200 millimeters. Parts of Laos could see up to 120. Same for parts of Thailand and Myanmar. Looking at the German run, going a little bit higher on the rainfall totals along the coast of Vietnam, showing totals of up to 250 millimeters. Parts of Laos gets up to around 170 millimeters, and that's about the same for parts of Myanmar and Thailand, just some pockets of those heavier rainfall totals. And I believe that is that. So let's talk about the questions. See, Mackenzie asked if X-Aaron has moved to Ireland. Let's take a look at where that system is going. Not yet. It's going to be moving there over the next 3 days. Unfortunately, it will weaken some as it moves over there. Oh, well, this is kind of helpful in determining where the front is. Well, okay. Just looking at the warm front that it had right there. Anyways, though, that system, its circulation will be moving towards Ireland and the United Kingdom. Oh, alright. Let's see, Mackenzie says that 93W becoming tropical storm in the South China Sea. Well, we've given it again around 20% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 50% chance over the next 7 days, which that may be cut down to around 5 days, I'd say. So it's around a 50-50 shot of it actually developing. That was around a similar case, 60% for Kajiki, and then it ended up developing, so we'll see. I don't think it's going to get as strong as Kajiki did. See, Mackenzie says, would we be seeing a third Central Pacific system? Well, that is possible. We've given it around a 30% chance over the next over the next week, and a 20% chance over the next 48 hours or so. So it could try to quickly develop and spin up into a brief tropical system. Now, the Eastern Pacific and Central Pacific are going to be quite active with these spin-ups. Right here, you can see the Intercontinental Convergence Zone right over here, trying to spin up a lot of systems over there over the next 48 hours or so. If I pull it up on here, you can see just how many systems try to become tropical cyclones, so we'll need to be watching that zone over the next couple of days. There's just a lot of areas of spin along there. You could see one right over here. And you can see just all along this line right over here trying to develop some spin. And so it's going to be a little bit of a pain to forecast. The National Hurricane Center, this might be the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, has marked one of those disturbances with a 30% chance of development. We could see some development as well as it enters towards the international dateline. Mackenzie asks if there's anything new in the North Indian Ocean. Let's take a look at that. Now, looking at the European AI model, it does show something potentially spinning up even over the next 48 hours. I might have wanted to mark that. I'm going to look at the other models, see what they show. Just showing generally a broad circulation, nothing too defined. Maybe we'll tag it with a 10% chance development. Not really seeing a whole lot of support on that. Just a broad area of low pressure, nothing too big. But you can see the heavy rainfall happening in parts of Vietnam and Laos on here. Beyond that, if we look on beyond that system, we could see the remnants of 93W actually, even try to enter the North Indian Ocean and become a brief tropical cyclone there. So that's something to look out for as well. The European AI model does have that as a pretty clear tropical cyclone, at least on this. So let me go forward in time again. Right there is a decent tropical cyclone. So we may see an area of interest get marked or extended out of 93W into there. We'll see how this holds on model support. Nothing else is really showing that, I believe. Okay. And again, looking internationally on other systems, again, the Western Pacific may get another burst of activity with 2 or 3 disturbances trying to develop during the beginning of September there. See the European AI model in the much longer range showing another system. Let's see if that's been consistent or not. Yep, generally consistent that something could try to develop in the Philippine Sea beyond the 10-day range. Looking in the other basins, such as the North Atlantic, not expected to see a whole lot out of really anything here. I believe that is frontal. Yes, that's frontal. Not seeing a whole lot. There is a little bit of support that a wave could come off of Africa and develop over the next week. I am yet to mark that because I don't see a whole lot of support in that. It's mainly just the European ensembles showing that. Eastern Pacific, beyond this, beyond Juliet's and the next system right there, we could see another one that moves along the coast of Mexico, given that a 10% chance of development. Beyond that, again, the Eastern Pacific is expected to become more alive over the next week or two. If we look in the Central Pacific, we can see those little tropical disturbances there, those waves that move west. Not seeing a whole lot of activity there. Looking in the Southwest Indian Ocean, if there's anything to note there, may see a little bit of a spin over the next 10 days or so in the Southwest Indian Ocean there, but not doing a whole lot there. Maybe a brief tropical cyclone. And then looking in the Australian region, shouldn't really be expecting any activity at this time, and I believe the same is going to be true for the Southwestern Pacific. Nope, nothing really trying to develop there. Yep, the Atlantic is quiet, but the Western Pacific is going to be nearing its climatological peak, as TC mentions. Now again, if you have any questions, you can always ask, and I will gladly answer. I'd like to take a look at the international extremes. So tomorrow, let's see what's happening across the world. Record-breaking heat in the northeastern Pacific, not impacting land though. There are some heat though in parts of Canada. A lot cooler weather across the eastern United States. Of course, parts of Greenland there in the record. Ethiopia, could you see some near record-breaking cool temperatures? Parts of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan there in the warmer than average, parts of western China in the cooler, eastern China in that warmer, and of course southeastern Asia is going to be in that cooler category from Kajiki. Let's see, anywhere else in the southern hemisphere, southwestern or Western Australia in that cooler than average category there. Let's see if I can update this. Oh. And then if we look at the wind, of course the wind there is going to be pretty active across southeastern Asia from Kajiki. But if we look around elsewhere, of course Erin causing pretty windy conditions across the northern Atlantic. Not a whole lot to see, but if we look at the rain, Drier conditions for parts of northern Florida, parts of really the western United States. Could see some pretty bad rainfall there, especially along the central northwest area, parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas in that more extreme category. And if we look at parts of South America and the Caribbean there, seeing if there's anything that stands out, not a whole lot. And then if we look at parts of Europe, seeing if there's anything too crazy. Parts of France and Italy could see some heavy rainfall. Looking towards the south, though, wow, there's some record-breaking rainfall there for parts of Namibia and parts of Botswana in South Africa. I'm curious to see what that is, and as to how heavy that's going to be. Okay, not a whole lot. Only around 2 to 3 inches or so. But I'm guessing it's because the area is quite dry, maybe? Let's see, why is this happening? It looks like an upper level low there causing a lot of rainfall to stall. Right over there, may see some flooding out of that. Let's do total accumulated precipitation and go beyond that. Oh, well, yeah, that could be a pretty bad flooding event. Wow, yeah, okay. Looks like they're pretty dry, and I may make a post about that. Anyways, let's continue looking at the extremes there. Oops. So some pretty intense rainfall there in parts of southern Africa. Looking towards the north here, of course it's going to be quite wet due to Kajiki. Parts of China and that wetter than average. Nothing too crazy though on this. Seems like southern Africa is going to be the main hotspot for record-breaking rainfall. Now let's see if there's any other questions there. Nope, don't see any. Well, that's about it from me. The next update, I don't know when that will be, but it will likely be covering 93W, as that's the main threat that would cause any really code level. Like I said, we are currently in code orange due to 93W and code red for Kajiki. But as Kajiki moves inland, that code's going to go down and eventually most likely dissipate. And 93W, though, that code might go up over the next few days, depending on if it tries to form or not. So the next update will likely be in the next 3 days or so. I'd say in the next 2 to 4 days. Maybe, yeah, I'd say 2 to 4 days. Maybe even 2 days to a week or so. So we may see a quieter period. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. And if you have any other, or hold on, wait. I'm going to actually see if there's any questions on the last video. Just making sure. No, it's just someone commenting on the live stream. Alright, well, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next